Growing up, Goten and Trunks, mainly Goten to me personally, were some of the coolest characters that were introduced in Dragon Ball Z during the Buu Saga. I mean, what wasn't there to like? Just the arc before, we had been introduced to adult Trunks, arguably the coolest character in all of Dragon Ball. Honestly, no, not arguably, he is. And now here he is as a kid, so automatically you'd assume he was meant to inherit all that coolness, so to speak. Then there's Goten, Goku's youngest son, and again, just the arc before, we saw Goku's first son, Gohan, be the youngest ever Super Saiyan and also absolutely destroy Cell and be the first person to ever achieve Super Saiyan 2. So let's just say that, there was a little bit of a setup for Goten also. Now, here again is Goten, the new absolute youngest Super Saiyan in the entire series, and as an 8-year-old kid, this was the coolest thing to me because I saw myself in them, and I expected them to not only become some of the most powerful characters in the story, but also the most powerful Saiyans in general, or amongst the most powerful Saiyans in general. But as I grew, there's something that I began to notice, especially by the time Super came around, is that these kids were bums. These kids were bums, bro. I'd even argue a waste of Saiyan genes. Now, I know that's a crazy statement, but give me some time, and honestly, I think you will agree. So throughout this video, we're going to talk about Goten and Trunks, how we originally met them in the original series, then in Super, and we'll touch on Super Hero, and then we'll also compare them to their GT counterparts. So once again, I do really want to thank you guys so much for the support that you've been showing this channel. It's crazy to me that we're already at 800 subscribers. I was really hoping to hit that by the end of the week. Yesterday, you hit it today. We're at 810 right now, so thank you so much. Pretty sure it's 811. We're still counting. So I just want to say thank you guys so much. We're definitely gonna hit 1,000 by the end of the year. Just gotta keep going. So if you enjoy, leave a sub, leave a like, comment what you guys think I can do better, I can improve on, and let's get into the video. So when we first return to Z, we are introduced to Goten, and he's a young kid who wants to learn how to properly, partake in fighting. And this is a stark contrast to Gohan, who at that same age didn't necessarily want to fight or like fighting, but was willing to if, the need came about. And Goten spent most of his time just being a kid. But once Gohan started training in preparation for Goku's arrival for, the World Tournament, we are made aware of the fact that by the age of 7, Goten had already become a Super Saiyan, making him officially, in the series to date, the youngest Super Saiyan ever. Something that Goku and Vegeta didn't achieve until their 30s. And on Vegeta's part, it definitely wasn't for a lack of trying or a lack of knowledge. Sorry for the Vegeta stray. At this time, it was revealed it was controversial, especially because of how easy it was for Goten, since he did achieve it while training with Chi-Chi. Have your own opinions on that however you want to. But then there was Trunks, who was first revealed to have Super Saiyan abilities while training with Vegeta in the Gravity Room, which in itself is an impressive feat, because remember, by the age of 20 to 30, that's when Vegeta and Goku really started training in gravity rooms. But we see that even Vegeta himself didn't know that Trunks had achieved Super Saiyan, which means that he was probably training by himself at one point, or maybe possibly with Goten, which makes the most sense when he achieves it. So it's not, think of it this way, it's not like they had the knowledge of it. It's kind of similar to how Goku achieved it. He had no real prior knowledge to how to do Super Saiyan or become a Super Saiyan. He just did it. He just achieved it. And they achieved it at prepubescent ages, if we're being honest. It's crazy if you think about it. Now, I know by the time Super came around, Super Saiyan was generally just being treated as a party trick, but at this point, it was still the pinnacle of Saiyan power, especially at this point in the story. Needless to say that by that point, they were considered prodigious fighters. They were set up to be absolute powerhouses. Now, I will admit that by the time Buu had shown up, Super Saiyan itself was considered irrelevant, but this is due to power creep and the fact that the main Saiyans had achieved Super Saiyan 2, and in the case of Goku, Super Saiyan 3. So them not really being able to achieve much wasn't necessarily their fault. And this problem, however, is solved by them learning the fusion dance, which would be one of the best things and absolute worst things to happen to their characters, which I will talk about in the Super section because that's when I really think it becomes abused. So When Goten is first introduced, it was again some of the coolest things that I've ever seen. He came in with the Saiyan attitude, some really iconic moves like Super Kamikaze Ghost Attack, bro. I remember like playing Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and that being my absolute favorite move to use when I was using Goten, if it wasn't using GT Goku, right? But he came in again with the Saiyan attitude, some iconic moves, but he also learned Super Saiyan 3 from just seeing Goku do it once, which I don't think has ever been done or heard of since. Just seeing somebody do a transformation once and just achieving it. I mean, I think the closest we ever get to this is with the Universe 6 Saiyans, which I have my own opinions on. But seeing these kids when I was younger go up against the main villain had me so locked in. Eventually, as we all know though, you know, they weren't the ones to get the finishing blow on Super Buu, which I never really expected them to, and you never really expected them to. I do think this, however, sets them up to be new protectors of Earth eventually. It's similar to how Gohan as a kid was being set up to replace Goku, but it's a little bit different this time because we don't necessarily expect to see the payoff for it. There doesn't really need to be a payoff with this right now. Seeing the things that they could do and achieve at such a young age was a great indicator of the things for them to come. It's like, as a kid, you're this super genius, right? You're reading at this college level and solving math and physics problems at the age of freaking 10 years old. Physics is hard. I took it in college. I took physics 4 times in college. Physics 1 twice, physics 2 twice. It's hard, okay? I do biology stuff. Let's get back on track here. But imagine you're doing that at that age. That's what that's comparable to. And did they have the same rap sheet as Gohan by that age? No, but that's mainly because they grew up in a time of peace, so they didn't really get the chance to. Which, if we consider that they show up and put on this kind of performance, not having to do what Gohan went through, you know, being trained by Piccolo from the age of freaking 4 years old, then having to fight the Saiyans, going to Frieza or Namek and fighting Frieza, then fighting Cell and all that kind of things. Like, it's impressive the things that they do achieve, considering that they're in peace times. It was pretty good. So overall, I will say Z introduced and set them up pretty well, because we know that Saiyans only improve with age. And honestly, they definitely had the best foundations in the story. Better than Gohan. I will admit it. Better than Gohan. Now, let's move on to Super, where I think the true damage was done with these kids and where most of my problems comes in with these kids. So I do want to start this off by letting you know that when it comes to Super, it is genuinely my least favorite piece of Dragon Ball media out there. It has its cool moments, undoubtedly, but I don't necessarily have much nice things to say about it, so I'm just gonna let you know that right now. Do I love Ultra Instinct? Yes. Do I have my opinions on it? Do I think Ultra Instinct should have been a technique instead of a transformation? Yes. Ultra Ego on Vegeta, super dope. Should it have done something in the Granola arc? Yes. I'm gonna make a Vegeta video, believe me. Beast Gohan, super dope, makes no sense. Orange Piccolo and that little kind of pale form you got, love it. No opinions on that one. That was dope. So with Goten and Trunks in Super, they are genuinely reduced, in my opinion, to just gag characters. And it does make sense in a kind of way. You know, they are the youngest out of all the main cast, and the power scaling honestly had left them far behind by this point because of the introduction of God Ki, something that for some reason or another was restricted to just Goku and Vegeta only. And you know, you would think that the Saiyans, the half-breed Saiyans that have so much more potential than Goku and Vegeta, would be able to achieve this thing, but whatever, we're gonna get back on topic here. So our main experience with Goten and Trunks in Super mostly involves them with the Pilaf gang. I also have my own opinions on this, especially with that weird relationship between Trunks and Mai, but it's an anime, so I'm gonna leave it where it is. I'm not gonna get too much on that. And by this point, I'm not even sure if they are training anymore. And I'm gonna skip over all the arcs in the Super anime because they genuinely play no important roles. They weren't included in the Tournament of Power because of their inexperience in fighting, which is kind of crazy considering they fought Buu whether it was fused or not. And realistically, I will say it was mainly because of their reliance on the fusion technique. I mean, every single chance these kids got to get involved in a serious fight, they automatically resorted to using fusion immediately. They didn't really try to push themselves as fighters individually. They turned what was supposed to be a last resort technique into just another weapon in the arsenal, and this is exemplified in no place better than the superhero movie. When they are called in to go against Cell, they don't even make an attempt to really go Super Saiyan on their own to try and fight. And I understand just going straight for your most powerful transformation if you want to end a fight quickly, or if you tried to fight and your current power level wasn't enough. But imagine if in every single fight, Goku and Vegeta or even Gohan immediately pull out Vegito or Gogeta. I don't know what Gohan's fusion with anybody would be called. It wouldn't be satisfying to see, especially if one of them was your favorite characters. Goten used to be my favorite character, and you want to see that character grow. And just seeing Trunks also grow with him would be so amazing. It'd be great. But it's also not to mention that when they do fuse in Superhero, they mess it up and turn into fat Gotenks. So once again, they're being played for a gag. Now, look, I know Toriyama is a gag mangaka at heart, that's what he does, but it does get a bit frustrating when something that we've been waiting on for years, everyone was waiting on for years, to see Teen Gotenks is dangled in front of us, waved in front of us, and just thrown out as a gag. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And also, their over-reliance on fusion, as I've said before, has stunted their growth exponentially. How is it that Gohan went from being a regular Super Saiyan at the age of 9 to Super Saiyan 2 within the span of a year? But these kids who have had Super Saiyan transformations since the age of 7 and 8 haven't made any real advancements individually or honestly together. All the momentum it seems like they had by the end of Z was just immediately like eliminated. They have genuinely achieved nothing in terms of being individuals, and even as a fused fighter, they're living off feats that they achieved at the age of 7 and 8. And that's so crazy to me, because imagine if Goku was still living off of those feats that he achieved at the age of freaking when he's first introduced in Dragon Ball. I mean, honestly, think about Gohan. If Gohan was still living off of the feats, which he kind of technically is, but he does show some growth throughout Z and then in Super. Imagine if Gohan was still living off of the feat of defeating Cell. Imagine if he was still living off the feat of going Super Saiyan 2, right? I will admit that Toei does use that nostalgia. We saw that with Beast Gohan. I mentioned that in my previous video. Go watch it if you didn't. There's that Gohan video. I'm gonna link it below. But just imagine if eternally that's what they were living off of. It wouldn't be satisfying, especially if you like these characters, right? Now, I do want to quickly talk about how they are presented and represented in GT. And Trunks and Goten in GT are shown to still be somewhat capable fighters, even though Trunks does have a job at Capsule Corp, and Goten is mainly focusing on his personal life with girls and dating. Shout out to him, brother, I get you. But the thing that I like about GT, despite its flaws, believe me, despite its flaws, is its characterization of these two. While Goten is shown to have girl problems, it's not necessarily played for a gag, it's just his character. Same as with Trunks getting involved with the Capsule Corp. Even though they aren't fighters anymore, they're shown to be able to hold their own individually, which is the most important thing to me. Right? When they Trunks literally is the one who goes on the journey with Goku and Pan. So Trunks has to be a capable fighter to keep up in space, because Pan, she's a kid, sure, but Pan loves fighting. Pan is training all the time to fight. Is Pan the weakest out of all of them? Sure. But Trunks, he's with Kid Goku. Goku's not as powerful as he used to be anymore because he's a kid. So, you know, he got to do something to kind of even it out. And then with Goten, when Baby does come to Earth, Goten doesn't win at all. But it's mostly because when Baby does take over somebody's body, he does increase their power. And also Gohan has just always been more powerful than Goten, which, you know, I'm not really mad at that. That one I'm not really mad at. So it's like they do show in GT that they have the capabilities to be their own fighter. They're not relying on fusion, right? They aren't dependent on each other to fight. Could they fuse? Yes, but they're willing to take on these fights on their own. And all this to say that I do think Goten and Trunks suffer from the same thing that Gohan currently does. And it's the fact that Dragon Ball is going on longer than it should have. This decision has genuinely hurt characters more than anything. And listen, I love Dragon Ball. I would die for more Toriyama written Dragon Ball. I'll put that out there. Toriyama written like in the 90s type Dragon Ball. That is what I would die for, right? So, and believe me when I say I was one of those people who, when Super was announced to come back, I was clamoring for it. I was hyped for it. I was like, wow, bro, in my own lifetime, I'm finally gonna see new Dragon Ball content airing weekly in my lifetime. I was never born when Dragon Ball was airing, when it was, let alone being released in the manga form. I wasn't even I wasn't even sperm in my dad's nutsack yet, bro. Yeah, man. But I don't think that they're ever gonna be relevant to the series anymore. They're never gonna get any more relevant transformations or power-ups to matter in the fight, so it really doesn't matter. And at this point, it does seem like they are a waste of the Saiyan genetics, bro. Like, they aren't gonna do anything with it, and that's a shame, because they're coming from being some of the most potential filled character. I know I said with Gohan, like, the potential thing was annoying, but these kids genuinely had the potential to be those warriors, those heroes of the next generation, and now it's just gone. And that hurts. It sucks. But that's the video. And as always, if you enjoy, please leave a sub, leave a like, leave a comment on what you guys think I can improve on. And thank you guys so much for the support. I'm gonna keep posting, keep being consistent, and I love you guys, and I hope to get another video out within the next 2 days. I will see you. Goodbye.